roaster. Thank you.
Gentleman from Texas is recognized for 7 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. As he said, I flew 62 combat missions in the Korean War and 25 in Vietnam before being shot down. Had the privilege of serving in the United States Air Force for 29 years, attending the prestigious National War College, commanding 2 air bases, among other things. I mention these stories because I view the debate on the floor not just as a U.S. congressman elected to serve the good people of the 3rd District in Texas, but also through the lens of a long-life fighter pilot, student of war, a combat warrior, a leader of men, and a prisoner of war. Ironically, this week marks the anniversary that I started a new life and my freedom from prison in Hanoi. I spent nearly 7 years as that prisoner of war, more than half of that time in solitary confinement. I flew out of Hanoi on February the 12th, 1973, with other long-held prisoners of war weighing just 140 pounds. And tomorrow, 34 years ago, I had my homecoming to Texas, a truly unspeakable blessing of freedom. While in solitary confinement, my captors kept me in leg stocks, like the Pilgrims, for 72 days. As you can imagine, they had to carry me out of the stocks because I couldn't walk. Following day, they put me in leg irons for 2.5 years. That's when you have a tight metal cuff around each ankle with a foot-long bar connecting the legs. I still have very little feeling in my right arm, right hand, and my body has never been the same since my nearly 2,500 days of captivity. But I'll never let my physical woes hold me back. Instead, I try to see the silver lining. I say that because in some way, I'm living a dream, a hope that I had for the future. From April 16, 66 to February 12, 73, I prayed that I would return home to the loving embrace of my wife, Shirley, and my 3 kids, Bob, Jenny, and Beverly. My fellow POWs and I clung to the hope of when, not if, we returned home. We would spend hours tapping on the adjoining cement walls about what we would do when we got home to America. We pledged to quit griping about the way the government was running the war in Vietnam and do something about it. We decided we would run for office and try to make America a better place for all of us. So little did I know back in my rat-infested 3x8 dark and filthy cell that 34 years after my departure from hell on earth, I would spend the anniversary of my release pleading for a House panel to back my measure to support and fully fund our troops in harm's way. And that just days later I would be on the floor of the U.S. House of Representatives, surrounded by distinguished veterans, urging Congress to support our troops to the hilt. We POWs were still in Vietnam when Washington cut the funding for Vietnam. I know what it does to morale and mission success. Words cannot fully describe the horrendous damage of the anti-American efforts against the war back home to the guys on the ground. Our captors would blare nasty recordings over the loudspeaker of Americans protesting back home, tales of Americans spitting on Vietnam veterans when they came home, and worse. I don't think we should ever let that happen again. The pain inflicted by your country's indifference is tenfold that inflicted by your ruthless captors. Our troops and their families want, need, and deserve the full support of this country and the Congress. Moms and dads watching the news need to know that the Congress will not leave their sons and daughters in harm's way without support. Since the President announced his new plan for Iraq last month, there has been steady progress. He changed the rules of engagement, removed political protection. There are reports we wounded the number 2 of al-Qaeda and killed his deputy. And yes, Al-Qaeda operates in Iraq. It's alleged that top radical jihadist al-Sadr has fled Iraq, maybe to Iran, and Iraq's closed its borders with Iran and Syria. The president has changed course, has offered a new plan. We are making progress. We must seize the opportunity to move forward, not stifle future success. Debating non-binding resolutions aimed at earning political points only destroys morale, stymies success, and emboldens the enemy. The grim reality is that this House measure is the first step to cutting funding of the troops. Just ask John Murtha about his slow bleed plan that hamstrings our troops in harm's way. Now it's time to stand up for my friends who did not make it home and those who fought and died in Iraq already, so I can keep my promise that when we got home we would quit griping about the war and do something positive about it. We must not allow this Congress to leave these troops like the Congress left us. Today, let my body serve as a brutal reminder that we must not repeat the mistakes of the past. Instead, learn from them. We must not cut funding for our troops. We must stick by them. We must support them all the way. And to our troops, we must remain always faithful. God bless you all. I salute you and this Congress.